Federal regulators Thursday ordered an overhaul of the nation's grid connection rules to fast-track power for artificial intelligence data centers and manufacturing plants as part of an effort to protect national security and economic interests. Now, this directive, as reported on at thecentersquare.com, includes strict safeguards to shield U.S. ratepayers from rising electricity costs. The Center Square education industry reporter Alton Wallace, he reports that under the new orders, the nation's 6 regional market operators have 60 days to comply with the requirement that they must either legally justify their existing grid connection rules or file sweeping tariff overhauls directed specifically at large energy users. Now, the regulatory overhaul advances a policy initiative launched by the U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright under the Trump administration's broader energy dominance initiatives. Now, in pushing for the changes, Wright said that large loads like AI data centers must connect to transmission systems in a timely manner to secure America's economic superiority. And as Pennsylvanians grapple with rising electricity costs, the debate over how to keep power both reliable and affordable is intensifying in Harrisburg. A new Commonwealth Foundation report says ratepayers have paid more than $3.3 billion in costs tied to Pennsylvania's alternative energy mandates, and warns that parts of Governor Josh Shapiro's energy proposals could drive residential electricity bills even higher. The Center Square contributor Lauren Jessup tells us, and the report says, despite the high and rising price tag, these green energy mandates fail to increase renewable generation or drive emissions reductions. Shapiro's Lightning Plan, which he describes as an all-of-the-above energy strategy, it was announced in 2025 and it includes 6 different types of initiatives. But some in the Pennsylvania House, they're looking to focus more on maintaining traditional energy resources rather than renewables. Here's Pennsylvania Republican State Representative David Rowe on Wednesday.
Across those hearings, testimony consistently warned. Artificial interventions like price caps do not solve the problem. The solution is actually remarkably simple: expand reliable energy production. The reality is this, Madam Speaker: Pennsylvania powers our neighboring states, not just because we have vast natural resources, but because our neighboring states have doubled down on short-sighted policies that have actually discouraged energy production. Maryland, for example, has shuttered 16 power plants, eliminating 4,000 megawatts of electricity. Virginia is in the process of rejoining the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, an energy tax that we all should be probably pretty familiar with by this point, that will drive generators away from our neighboring Commonwealth. Fortunately, Pennsylvania left this very compact last year, and that was a huge win that allowed us to once again unleash our full energy potential. Unfortunately, rather than reaping the rewards of increased energy productions, Pennsylvania ratepayers will be punished with higher utility bills so that ratepayers in Maryland and Virginia can pay less. States that choose to suppress their own generation through carbon taxes or renewable mandates, they should bear the cost of those choices, not export it to Pennsylvania families and businesses. Without this amendment, Madam Speaker, we will be forcing Pennsylvanians to pick up the tab for Maryland, Virginia, New Jersey, and the rest of PJM.
Now, Rowe's amendment failed on the floor. In Michigan, House Speaker Matt Hall, he recently talked about other energy policies in that state, including what's expected to be a pretty historic reopening of a stalled nuclear energy plant.
You all saw me this week with Secretary Wright, the Energy Secretary, who's doing a fantastic job. You know, you look at the work he's done to reopen the Palisades nuclear plant, which will reopen later this summer. It'll be the first time a nuclear plant has decommissioned and then reopened. I'm looking forward to joining him there. You also heard him talk about how if we wouldn't have worked together to keep that Campbell coal plant open in West Michigan, that we could have had a blackout during those really cold weeks in the wintertime. And, you know, we're committed to working together on affordable and reliable energy by ending a lot of these crazy green energy mandates, repealing the law that allows the Whitmer administration to just shove windmills and solar panels all over local communities, overriding their say, and focusing on affordability and reliability on your energy bill rather than all this political stuff, including environmental justice, that's raising the cost drastically.
Now, a lot of different states taking different approaches, including states like Illinois that are giving tax benefits to wind, solar, and battery manufacturers and installation, while others seeming to be more in lockstep with the Trump administration and the goal of focusing more on those resources like coal, natural gas, and even nuclear. But the cost of turning the lights on isn't the only thing consumers are paying for. They're also paying gas taxes all across the country. And back into Michigan, they're looking to provide some taxpayer incentives to the biodiesel industry.
With diesel prices rising, biodiesel offers an alternative to our standard diesel that's much cleaner and keeps production here in Michigan. This legislation with Rep. Whitwer and I are proposing is bipartisan and reasonable. It'll encourage the production and sale of biodiesel here in our state while also recognizing that we need to be realistic on how we approach this legislation. The bill package calls for tax incentive that caps at $16 million annually for the program between producers and retailers of biodiesel will sunset in 2030, where we can look at it again. $14 million will be available to retailers and $2 million will be available to producers of biodiesel and distributed evenly. This legislation will encourage the cleaner the better as it relates to biodiesel. The cleaner the fuel, the higher the tax incentive.
Now in Georgia, the issue of taxes on gasoline continues in their special session. State Representative Matthew Gamble, he addressed the ongoing suspension of that state's motor fuel tax that's kept millions of dollars in taxpayers' pockets over the past few months.
It saved Georgians approximately $100 million, and this is in addition to the $390 million in savings that was brought by the 60-day suspension under House Bill 1199. So again, just like previous resolutions, this one will simply ratify the governor's suspension of motor fuel and diesel fuel taxes and is a necessary procedure that we need to do during the time that we're together.
Now, the ongoing questions involve the international picture, and State Representative Brian Prince in Georgia asked about where Georgia goes from here.
But my question, it goes to, based on where we are now in the world, United States, and what's going on in Iran, is there a possibility we could possibly suspend it again and us having to come back? Is that sort of still a possibility that we can?
So I wouldn't want to speak on behalf of the governor. I know that certainly could be done, and I'm sure that conversation is being actively monitored, but for the sake of the legislation that we have in front of us today, it only addresses the suspension of what we've just come off of. So, that's what we're trying to do with this one, and then future suspensions would have to be determined at a later time.
Now, on the issue of the conflict between the U.S. and Iran, Israel and Hezbollah agreed to a ceasefire today, a U.S. official confirming to the Center Square. Overnight, 18 people were killed in Lebanon amid strikes between Israel and Hezbollah, the Lebanon Health Ministry reported. Now, 4 Israeli soldiers were also killed, according to the Israeli military. A U.S. official confirming on background that Israel and Hezbollah agreed to a ceasefire. The overnight attacks, first by Hezbollah and countered by Israel, appeared to stall peace talks between the United States and Iran. Vice President J.D. Vance delaying a trip to Switzerland that was set to include discussions on Iran's nuclear program. First article in a memorandum of understanding between Iran and the U.S. calls for an end to the fighting in Lebanon between Israel and Hezbollah. That memorandum sets out a 60-day ceasefire for negotiations to continue on the future of Iran's nuclear program and set up a $300 billion reconstruction fund for Iran. Stay up to date with the latest on that conflict and how it's hitting your bottom line here at home at the gas pump by subscribing to the newsletter for free at thecentersquare.com.